So we have working code and we've solved the puzzle. Let's talk about a few common errors folks run into. Number one, clicking the wrong button. So if we have, let's go back to something that is not working. So we'll have this speed right around negative 41 or 40. I'll actually put it at 41. Do our test case, and we see this, and it doesn't work. And you're like, oh, okay. So if I just change this to some smaller number like negative 38, it should work just fine. And then I click up here. When I click up here on this button, the program does not rerun any of this code. It reruns what it did the last time. So this is literally a rerunning of the code that was already out there. And so we'll see at the end, it crashes. But I'm not going to change any additional code and just click the try again button. And now, see, we're going to be landing just fine, right? So clicking the wrong button is a common error that folks run into on this puzzle and on several others, actually. Output multiple lines. So sometimes what I see is, we put this in there to begin with, right? I changed this line of code. It used to say, just 3. Um, why? Lost those comments. But right, this is what it used to say. Sometimes people will add an additional output line, right? Instead of changing the one line, should be one output line. And I think it talks about this in the rules here. That for the output for the game turn, it should be a single line with 2 integers. And I think that's what people mean to do, but instead of changing this, they just add another output line or do something like um, take this. Just put it in there, right? So here's a way that it's a little less obvious that there's 2 output lines, because if this is true, you get this output and this output. But if it's false, you only get this one. So let's see what happens when we run this. Usually get some unpredictable results. Running your code did not read all available input before printing an instruction. Right, so weird things are happening because we are outputting multiple lines, especially when it gets down to this area right here, right? The speed is higher. And so looks like we're going back and forth between 0 and 3. And that's because we're going to um, output a thrust equals 0 here. And maybe even we left this other part in, right? Output thrust equals 4. We're going to get some unpredictable results here because um, it's just not doing what we expect it to do. We need just one output line. And so if we put this back the way it was, just have the one output line, all of a sudden this starts working again. Right, all the way to the end, and that works just fine. So having multiple output lines when you should have a single line is one. The wrong if check. So this if statement, if it is wrong, and with this one in particular, leaving off the negative sign, right? If I say if the V speed is less than 38, right? Because I want to keep it under 40 in the down direction. what happens here? I think I'm going to just launch off into space. Yep, there it is, starting to launch into space. My speed keeps going up. It was 8, it's 9, it's 10. Keeps increasing in the up direction because the check in my if statement is wrong. It shouldn't be less than 38. It should be less than negative 38. And then if I run this again, get my if statement back in line. Now it lands perfectly. Did not include an else. So we didn't use an else in this statement. We could have um, down here, right? If we were to put this, let's unhook these. We'd put this right in here, right? And then set the output to be 3. So we only set the output in the if statement, which would mean we would have not int thrust output equals 0. But we would want to put it in here, right? This would be the correct code. Let's see it work. And this is correct code. But the common problem is if you take off that else and you just leave it like this, then my if statement is running, but then this always runs. So it looks like the flow chart of that actual code that I just showed you isn't this, it's that. Right, so at the end, the output thrust is always equal to 3. And I'm going to crash. Crash. Um, yeah, or maybe I'll leave this off altogether, right? And so again, maybe this is what I intend, right, to have it up here, but the code that I just wrote is this. Output thrust is never initialized. So I think the way Java works is it will probably be set to 0. Oh no, we get a Java error saying this value was never initialized. Right, so those are all some common problems with some of these puzzles in general and some of them specific to this Marslander episode 1. Hope you find those useful.